This video is brought to you by Boxu. Check out the link in the description to see how you can get 10% off your subscription, and big thanks to Capcom for providing a free copy of today's game of Topic. Hey everyone, Gaijin Goombah here. Well, it's finally out, gang. I know a lot of you have been waiting and waiting and waiting for the PC release of Monster Hunter Rise with its fantastical HD models and uncapped frame rate. For us though, we've been waiting for a PC release for Monster Hunter Rise so we can ride that sweet, hot new wave of internet hype, so we can continue our sub-series that analyzes just how utterly dense Rise is when it comes to Japanese everything. Food, clothing, architecture, weapons, even to a small degree religious paranormality. But the one thing this game does most with its source material of culture is the reimagining of some of Japan's most well-known and most terrifying yokai folklore monsters. Thus far, we've covered 3 of these monsters and their yokai origins: the Great Izuchi, Ragnakadaki, and the Gosarag. But even this is only a few scratches of the surface of how dense this game is with its yokai references.
Not to mention, those 3 videos were of the 6 total videos we did on Rise as a whole. Lord knows how many more we could crank out if we tried to break down the game's Japanese heritage in its entirety.
Well, that's why we're just sticking with the monsters for now. Specifically today, we're taking a dive into one of the monsters that actually made its debut in Rise, the Bishaten. Now, at first glance at the name, some of you culture nuts like myself might think this is a reference to Bishamonten, Buddhist/Hindu deity and lord of wealth, treasure, and battle. But this would be incorrect, as there really isn't much correlation between this god and this fanged beast.
Well, it might be a small nod for all we know, but it's kind of irrelevant considering how obvious the cultural reference is with Bishaten.
Exactly, and that reference being the classic
Battle of Crab and Monkey. Now, I know that may sound a tad crazy considering we do have ourselves a monkey, but utterly lacking in a crab with Bishaten's encounter, but rest assured, this backflipping primate is 100% based off of the Japanese fairy tale, The Battle of Crab and Monkey, aka Sarukari Kaisen. And yes, I'm hyping this intentionally, cause man, that's gotta be a freaking spectacle. Have you seen crab fights lately? Freaking wild.
Well, sure, but
I digress. What's the most common theme that goes along with this fight? Well, aside from all this monkey-like hopping around, it's all this fruit that Bishaten weaponizes, right? There's the poison fruit, which hits you with a damage-taking debuff. There's the flash fruit, which will stun you, and the jumbo fruit, which, if you're able to pick one up, can heal you for the same amount as a mega potion. And this monkey of a monster is just constantly lobbing these things around, if not snacking on them. So, what does this have to do with the Battle of Monkey and Crab? Well, as the story goes, there was once a crab who found a rice ball laying about and was bringing it back to his family when a monkey in a nearby tree saw the crab with the rice ball and offered to trade it for the monkey's persimmon seed. At first, the crab refused, but the monkey was like, dude, you could grow a whole tree of fruit from this one seed. That onigiri is only gonna last your one meal. So, crafty bugger that he was, the monkey convinced the crab to trade. While the monkey snacked on the rice ball, the crab spent his time planting, watering, and caring for the persimmon seed until it grew and bore tons of persimmon fruit. But there was a problem. Aside from the terrifying coconut crab, ain't a lot of crabs that can climb trees. So, crab wasn't able to get all that fruit. Monkey, seeing crab's plight, offered to climb up and pick all the ripe fruit for crab in exchange for a few pieces for himself, and crab agreed. But while monkey ate all the ripe persimmons, he only threw down to crab the old rotten ones. Angered, crab yelled at monkey to make good on his word, where monkey responded by beating crab in the carapace with a dozen unripe persimmons so hard that it straight up killed crab.
okay, that's kinda dark, but
Hearing about this, crab's children found their father, learned of his murder, and planned to get their revenge, enlisting the help of their father's close friends, a bee, a chestnut, no relation, and usu, which are like big heavy mortars used to make mochi, and a cow turd.
wait, how does a crab make friends with a cow?
They hid in Monkey's home and planned to ambush him when he walked in the front door. Chestnut hid in the fire and punched Monkey in the face with a flaming fist. Monkey went to a pail of water to aid his burning face, but Bee was hiding inside and stung him in the face as well. Trying to run out of his home, Monkey stepped and slipped on Cow Turd and fell just outside his door, and that's when Usu dropped down and broke Monkey's back. Crab's children sauntered up to Monkey to force him to admit his guilt, which Monkey denied up and down, of course. Hearing this, eldest Crab's child unlocked his massive claw and crushed Monkey's head. And thus, now you understand why Bishaten is so haphazard with his flung fruit. Just as monkeys smash crab with persimmons, so too is Bishaten trying to smash player hunters with persimmons. And you can't tell me he ain't throwing persimmons. I mean, look at the side-by-side comparison.
Okay, that's all well and true, but if you look—
Hey, speaking of snacky fruit, we got a new box to promote, don't we? Oh yeah, the pink Valentine box. Hope you don't get stuck with just Giri Choco, bud.
Hey, I'll have you know that I get plenty of homemade choco from my wife,
And just what is Boxu, you might be asking? It's a handy-dandy little monthly box that kicks in over a dozen different kinds of local specialty snacks from all over Japan. And this month's box is no exception, with snacks coming in from Hokkaido all the way to Kagoshima. Here, open it.
Fine.
But don't think that's all you get, because within each box has a specialty cultural booklet. That's right, you're getting culture shocked with food. Pages of info on not only the makeup of each snack, but also where they come from and what gives them their regional specialty. On top of that, there's always a section devoted to a few vocabulary words having to do with the box's theme, and a few pages in the back for folklore or regional info. So, which one are you digging, my guy?
I guess those would be the Sukimasu Anpan chocolate with its light sweetness of chocolate cake and anko bean paste, the Azuki chocolate, which, I kid you not, tastes like an amazing blend of coffee and maple syrup, and I think my fave's got to be the handmade ume sake candy, cause yeah, there's actual sake in it.
Yup, Boxu don't skimp out on the good stuff. So if you're bored with big brand Japanese snacks and want to sink your teeth into the real thing, hit up that link in the description and use the code Gaijin10 to get 10% off your subscription. Shipping's free, you can cancel at any time. So come take a literal bite out of Japan's culture with Boxu.
Alright, hold up.
What?
Okay, this isn't to say that your analysis of Bishaten is wrong or anything, but the Battle of Crab and Monkey reference really is just a drop in the bucket with this guy. I'd argue that Bishaten is far more culturally connected to Japan's anthropomorphic avian masters of martial arts, the Tengu.
So, a flying monkey that weaponizes fruit is the same as a master of swordsmanship in Shugendo.
Yes, let's just go back to the whole Bishaten name thing for a hot sec. What I was trying to explain is that it's actually here we get our first clue into the connection with the Tengu. The original Japanese name of the Bishaten is actually Bishutengo, which absolutely gives reference to the yokai this monster is based on. I mean, if that wasn't enough, its title of Tengu-ju or Tengu Beast hits the nail on the head. A conclusion we came to with literally every other yokai-inspired monster we've talked about thus far in Rise.
Okay, fair, but I would also argue that Bishaten is far more monkey specifically because of the name. The English equivalent name Bishaten may very well have to do with the similar sounding Shibaten, whose name means miniature or lawn tengu. Though, don't be confused, this really is only a tengu in name, as it actually has more to do with kappa, having the appearance of a hairy, naked male child with a hobby of sumo and a habit of stealing food and creating illusionary sounds to hinder humans. But guess what else looks like a hairy, naked child? Yeah, monkeys, which is what Bishaten predominantly is. And if that wasn't enough, the name Bishu Tengo might also come from the word Bishu, which means exquisite sake in direct relation to Saruzake, or monkey booze, created by the fermented fruit discarded, aka thrown away, by monkeys.
Okay, I get it. There is some monkey business going on here. But Bishaten is absolutely some kind of avian as well. What with the wings and the arms, the beaked mouth, and the set of retrocees coming from Bishaten's lower back? Taken in isolation, this combination of bird with primate can easily lead one to the conclusion that Bishaten is a Karas Tengu, or Kotengu, a martial arts mix of man and bird that, despite being far less powerful than their Dai Tengu leaders, are still just as capable with weapons and elemental powers. Speaking of elemental powers, if you have a close look at Bishaten's tail, you see that, despite having phalanges, it has a very particular pattern. A pattern that is identical to a Tengu's Haochua fan. Though in older folklore this sort of fan merely grew noses really long, over time it became associated with the Dai Tengu's ability to manipulate huge gales and typhoons that would plague the human villages that dare build around the Tengu's mountain. Lastly, as far as the Bishaten itself goes, it has a massive stumpy horn growing right out of the middle of its forehead. This could be easily seen as a reference to a Tengu's Tolkien, a sort of box worn on the foreheads of not just Tengu, but IRL Shugendo practitioners called Yamabushi. Though a symbolic miniature version of the Kamakura period headwear of the same name, it also offers protection of the head and can double as a water cup to drink from and offer water to various deities. But if these aspects of the Bishaten don't sell you on the idea that the majority of its cultural connections are with Tengu, then check out the weapons and armor this thing's parts make. The first thing that immediately sticks out with the Bishaten's armor set is the helm, which has the exact same headplate as the Yamabushi Tolkien. mimicking the Bishaten's horn, which in turn is mimicking the dimensions of the Tolkien itself. Then there are these two little pom-pom tufts at the sides of the chest mantle. These are likely a reference to another of the Yamabushi's uniform garb, the Yuigesa or the Fudogesa, a sort of harness of 6 pom-pom balls, 4 in the front and 2 in the back, that represents the 6 forms of protection and virtue provided by one of the central deities of Shugendo, Fudomyo-o, which relates back to the garment's second name of Fudogesa. Finally, the Bishaten quill has a large conch shell in the back of the garment. This is a reference to the Horagai, a religious tool dating back over 1,000 years where Yamabushi would blow this conch horn to signal their presence to each other and the deities in whose mountains they transverse, accompanied by spoken sutras. And now we come to the weapons, and this is where there might be some confusion. Because though I've been yammering on and on about Bishaten's connection with Tengu and Yamabushi by proxy, there's a lot of specific Buddhist symbols in these weapons that Bishaten's parts make. The exercising sword and 5-pronged hammer are direct references to the 5-pronged Vajra or Thunderbolt, a weapon originally carried by Indian deities that made its way into Buddhism as a symbol of power and truth behind Buddha's lessons, specifically with the 5 prongs representing the 5 wisdoms of the 5 cosmic Buddhas. Then there's the wheel axe and dawn ray bow, both of which possessing the Buddhist wheel of Dharma, the outer roundness of the wheel representing the perfection of Buddhist teachings, the hub representing the 3 jewels of Buddhism, Dharma, Sangha, and the Buddha, and the 8 spokes of the wheel representing the 8-fold path that make up the core principles of Buddhism. Lastly, there's the High Priest Bowgun, which is modeled after a shakujo staff, a tool carried by Buddhist and Yamabushi monks that have 6 rings that dangle and clang, and each one of those representing the 6 realms of existence. And then there's the Lotus Bowgun, with the lotus in Buddhism symbolizing spiritual awakening and purity of self. Tons and tons of Buddhist symbols, right? But then you get to the armor and weapons of the Palicos and the Palamutes, and it's the most hardcore proof connection with Tengu and Yamabushi, with Hachua fans as weapons, the Palamute armor looking like a Tolkien-wearing avian, and the Palico wearing a literal 1-to-1 garb of a Dai Tengu, complete with the 6 balls of the Yuigesa, the Tolkien that is actually a Tolkien and not just symbolic, and a long-nosed mask. So then, why all this conflation between Shugendo Yamabushi and Buddhism? Well, that's because Shugendo is Buddhism. Well, kinda. See, Japan has had a long history of either religions coexisting in society or merging aspects of multiple religions into each other. Shugendo is a sort of combination of Shinto animism and Buddhist concepts rolled into one religion, and it's here where Tengu develop into a massive dichotomy. Trust me, I'm going somewhere big with this. On one hand, Tengu have been long associated with Shugendo and Buddhism to some extent as creatures of great power, protection, and knowledge, often attributed to other benevolent deities like Garuda or Izuna Daigongen. But Tengu have been reviled by communities in Japan as bringers of natural disasters, diseases, and culprits of kamikakushi or divine kidnappings as well. And perhaps the greatest demonification of them all is the idea that Tengu are wolves in sheep's clothing, creatures that dress in the guise of monks but actually lead Buddhists astray with the concept of Tengu-do, or Way of the Tengu, a path that offers incredible powers of illusion and evocation by the way of Geijutsu, as well as the encouragement of pride, power, and self-indulgence. And as you might expect, this did not lead monks to nirvana, but rather into a realm of eternal punishment. Thus, in time, rival sects of Buddhism would figuratively and literally paint each other as Tengu, monsters dressed as monks whose ill teachings would bring down the fall of the pure. So why bring up that negative aspect of Tengu? Because it, as well as everything else we've discussed in this video, completely encapsulates the prose that is written for the Bishaten's introductory cutscene. Tengu-do was historically seen as a road to perdition, a cursed existence to a realm of eternal suffering for not overcoming the temptations of evil. Tengu are seen as false monks of Buddhism. Ideally, a good monk's goal is to be a steadfast sentry to the teachings of Buddha. Tengu's goal is to corrupt monks into seeking selfish power and self-indulgence. That is an exceptionally devilish mission.
There's the Battle of Crab and Monkey reference.
That it absolutely is. Oh yeah, one thing that I didn't mention. Tengu are insanely territorial, and even the most basic Karasu Tengu is strong enough to end you before you hit the ground if you trespass or disturb their homes.
Huh, I guess we really do have a perfect hybrid of fairy tale and folklore here.
Well, that's the conclusion that I personally drew anyway, but what about the rest of you? Are there any other cultural points I missed? Anything I got backwards? Let me know in the comments below, and while you do, one last big thanks to Bulksu for sponsoring this video. If you want to get your hands on traditional bites from all over Japan, hit up my link in the description and use the code Gaijin10 to get 10% off your subscription. Also, be sure to swing by our streams over on Twitch every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday at 7 p.m. US Central. We worked with Capcom on a little event last weekend, but we're still plowing through Rise with a lot to look forward to. And yes, I'm an adorable little Tanuki there. In the meantime, if you want to learn even more about Tengu, or the cultural origins of even more Monster Hunter Rise's monsters, we got plenty of videos out there on the channel that'll quench your thirst for knowledge. And we got plenty more videos coming down the pipeline too, so be sure to sub up and get notified. But until next time everyone, this is Gaijin Goombah, signing out.